How I found out about the 2-hour house, I'm at a Texas Motor Speedway, having a Coors Light, walking through the motorhomes, and I see Steve showing the video to his what his son had, you guys had accomplished.
Yeah.
And I said, man, play that video again. And they played it again. And then I said, let me see it again. The next thing you know, I'm going, Brian, this could be one of the best leadership books of all time. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, everything I've learned in my life, collaboration, teamwork, efficiency, time management, is in this story. And so I would love to hear when Brian brought you, hey, we're going to do this. Tell me what you were thinking at the time and walk me through the whole process.
Yeah. So incidentally, spent a lot of time with the Conaways in the infield at different speedways around the country. So I got indoctrinated into that whole world. But I think I remember it was Brad Root, Brian, and I. We were at one of these home builder seminars or something somewhere. I don't remember exactly, but Brian kept saying, hey, remind me, I got to talk to you and Brad about something. I want to talk to you about something. And I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what it was. But when he finally dropped it on us, there was quite a bit of buildup about it. But when I first heard about it, I got to be honest with you, I didn't get it. I didn't grab it. I think Brad grabbed it, but I just didn't grab it. And maybe I wasn't focused in on it. But Brian was extremely compelling in trying to convince us that, hey, we can do this. I've got this idea. There's this. Let me show this video. They did this house like in 1984. In San Diego. We built this. They built this house. We could totally beat that. And I'm thinking, gosh, Brian, you're ambitious. Like this is. And incidentally, Brian, he should have probably ran for governor. He was just very compelling, and I think we finally got to a point where we got it. I think I got it. And then it seemed like, Jose, there was probably a year worth of planning or more, as I recall back in the day, where we just went over things and were very meticulous and scientific about it. And I don't know where Brian got the energy or the depth to grab this, but it came to us like that, and we stayed with Brian, and we worked it out. But there was just a lot of planning. But I think the moment that the three of us got it, we were on a plane somewhere, and I think we're like, okay, hell, we're doing this. So I do kind of remember those big moments like that.
It's, when you were talking about, what do you do now? What do you do now? And since then, what have you been doing?
Yeah, well, that's a long list. I don't know. We haven't had much time. What I'm doing now is I'm currently a producer, or maybe a wannabe producer in the film business the last few years. But before that, I kind of got into consulting, and then that consulting kind of got into more of an individualized, like, coaching practice. I started working in Nashville and started working with musicians and artists and sports people, and just sort of walking them through various different struggles and that kind of a thing. About 3 or 4 years ago, I got involved in Comic-Con in the UK. And I was working with some actors and some talent there. And that just sort of naturally segued in. My brother, who we started Julian's back in 2001, had this harebrained idea. It's like, listen, I'm opening this office in Malta. You need to come help me out. We need to do this. And, where all these actors are here and all this stuff's going on. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm still doing a little bit of that, that coaching element, but a lot of that has sort of transferred over into the film business. And there's just, the need is endless there.
Well, and looking back that you're doing the coaching and consulting, and, I want to clarify something that I just learned. Coaching is pulling what you have in out. Consulting is sharing ideas what others are doing. Training is training. And therapy is therapy. I mean, some people just can't cut those ties. And going back to coaching, based on what you know now, and let's go back 20 years ago. When he came to you and you said you finally got it, that's kind of what you do sometimes for other people. What do you think made you click at the time when you say, I got it? And to refresh it, what I heard from others, Chuck Shin's group is where you guys went up to Denver. And I think you guys were,
Yes, sir.
I guess becoming better going through consulting, coaching classes, but how did that impact your life
Yeah,
personally?
hey, that's a great point, Jose. I probably haven't really connected those dots. I think that my time, with Brian and Brad and others specifically, probably impacted me more and provided me that jumping off point, right, to get into kind of that coaching, that consulting realm. But I always say this: you can't do anything without trust, right? You can have somebody talk, and I think you probably know this in your own, successful practice, that if you don't have trust, you don't have anything. So the thing about Brian and Brad and I, and the others too, I don't want to leave anybody out. There's just so many other people that made that happen, is we had trust. And so when Brian, came to us with this project, if the trust had not been there, I don't know that we'd been able to get past that. So I would just say the trust element was hugely, profoundly part of that whole relationship, which gave us, the wherewithal to join hands with Brian and pull that off. Because it was a huge, undertaking, as you know.
And we're talking about a 2,300 square foot house built within 3 hours and exceeded code. And like you said, a year and a half of planning. But let's touch on that, trust. I mean, trust means different things to different people. Based on your experience, knowing what you know now versus when you were going through that, what made you really trust them? Just anything that resonates, because I think that's a big deal, what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Brian and Brad, they latched on to me. I was kind of the new guy when I was coming into the Builders Association, and these guys, opened the door. They did this for a lot of people, but my story is they opened the door wide for me, and I found just a lot of commonalities with those two. A lot of people don't know this. Brian and Brad and I, we traveled the country extensively. With Bob Garrett and other people, on behalf of HomePack and the Builders Association. And we spent a lot of time together, in Las Vegas and Utah and Washington, D.C. And, I could just go on and on and on. So it's not like we were just, palling around. We had a lot of time together that we spent. And our families got to know each other as well. So the trust was just huge. The trust and rapport, it was the jumping off point, I think. I don't think if we had that, it wouldn't have worked. And I have to give Brian a lot of credit. He is very gifted in explaining things to people, but also building confidence with people and gaining their trust. He's gifted in that. So that made all the difference in my opinion.
And let's think about, because the purpose of some of this is mentoring, new leaders, people to take on challenges that they're going to have, or give them confidence or hope or whatever the case may be. But talk about the Builders Association.
Yeah,
it's Texas Area Builders Association.
Yeah.
But talk about that and why people should get involved and kind of how that impacted your life, and kind of walk through that, because that's kind of a step before that.
Yeah, sure. Man, back in the day, I think I joined when Brad's dad was the president, and I think that was 98, 99. I remember, maybe it was a little bit later. I just remembered, and we just had the 24th anniversary of 9/11 yesterday. It just reminded me, I was at a meeting with Brad and Brian and Bob, and maybe some others. I may be wrong about Bob, but definitely Gary, Brad's father. They were all stuck. They were in a meeting. They were all stuck in Hawaii because everything shut down. They were stuck there, and so he didn't show up for the meeting, and everybody was just like, "What's going on?" Everybody was just shut down, but. Getting back, I had to go back for a second and have a touchstone just to figure out, people like Bob Garrett and others. We had a very, very strong local chapter here. During that time, I would say, the early 2000s, it was just everybody knew about Tyler. Everybody knew about Tyler. And we had some really, really strong people here and a backbone. Both financially and otherwise, and we were very active. I mean, Brian and myself and Brad and others, went around, not just only the state of Texas, but around the country advocating for, builder rights. And we're very active in Austin with drafting legislation that I think was very favorable, and it still stands strong today with with laws and whatnot that are on the books. So for me personally, just having that sort of that professional acumen that I think I kind of grabbed from being modeled by the Bob Garretts and the Gary Roots and those guys that were kind of early in. And I'm missing a lot of people, Jose, but it was very profound and very strong. And I will say this: I think it gave a lot of credibility when Brian stepped up to want to do something this big. When everybody was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, no, we can do this. And Brian had the confidence of knowing that he could do it because he knew what we were about, right? He knew how strong we were in our membership and our leadership. And it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and one thing I know you haven't seen this in a while.
I haven't seen that in 20 years,
house.
man.
Here's the house, and then he has an idea to get 579 volunteers to band together. A year and a half of planning. Nobody got paid. We got it. And
no, I certainly didn't.
To do it impossible. But you know what that really tells me? That the human spirit is really alive and well. We just don't make the game big enough sometimes in our own life or in our business. Don't you agree? I mean, that's just kind of...
you're bringing up things that I haven't really talked about in a while.
It's with crazy. A macro point of view, you kind of go, holy, because I love this. I love the shatter mindsets. And what I mean by that is I'll ask a group of people, can you build a 2,300 square foot house and exceed code in less than 3 hours?
Yeah.
What are you guys thinking? And somebody goes, can't be done. Shitty house, can't be done. I go, well, how many other areas of your life are you setting limits for yourself without realizing you're doing it? And then when I show the video, it shifts the whole mindset. It's a cool...
Profound.
Just to add to it, both my parents are deaf mutes. I don't know if you knew that, but when I sign, you don't say I'm going to the store. It's I store, I eat, I crazy. You know what I mean? Just you get to the bottom line. And I say that because you mentioned paradigms. One thing I've learned over the years is that words and symbols are interpretive based on life experiences. So every word is different. So if I was to ask you what love is, you would give me your definition. Somebody else would give me a different definition. Someone else would give me a different, because it's based on their life experience, like you talked about paradigms. If I said freedom, you get 4 different definitions. If I said security, 4 different definitions. Insecurity. So what I've learned is words and symbols are interpreted based on our life experiences. So one thing I like about the 2-hour house, for me personally, is that when I mention teamwork, people are going to think teamwork in their own world. But when I show them teamwork here, it shatters the whole paradigm. It changes that whole symbol of the word in their lifetime. Does that make sense?
It does.
Which is a cool thing. So it's kind of, so that led to me realizing that what we say isn't always heard and understood the way it was intended, but more importantly, what we hear isn't what's being said. Does that make so? And to me, like you said, the challenge is what's in our head, and I think that if you're breaking those, or shifting some of those paradigms, or you're having people have self-discovery about why they're linked on whatever they're linked on, and that's a big deal. And it's that's kind of therapy and coaching at the same time, because that's what you're doing.
I totally agree, and I think the doctor's name escapes me. I think it's Dr. Mattei. He says that we see things how we see things, not how they are. Which I think plays into what you were just saying. And, I think you really captured, both in understanding the book and the premise behind the 2-hour house. You seemed to, of course, more than anybody, you grabbed that and captured it. I don't know that without that capture, we'd be 20 years later talking about it. I mean, it was a for a lot of people, it was just a thing that we did in 2005. It was a big deal. But credit to you for making this, what it is, because I think if you and Brian not collaborated, I don't know that this would be the long-standing, program that it is. And we had a lot of difficulty too. I mean, I don't even know if we have time for that, but man, we had a lot of difficulty, in getting there. We had a lot of failures, and that's another thing I think that plays into, what I do now is a lot of what I deal with is failure. It's not, it sounds all glamorous and everything, but I remember one time shaking my finger at Brian in his face one day. I mean, we got into it pretty good one day. I mean, tensions were high. It was hot. We were doing a practice house, and I'll never forget. It was almost, if I didn't know any better, you know, Brian could have done a damn reality show on this thing, and probably should have back at the time, where he kind of pit Brad and I against each other. Like, we had a red house and a black house, as I recall, and we did these practice houses, right? And we were stress testing our program, and you know, it was an absolute shit show. You know, and I really felt like for a minute, I think it was just the dehydration and the heat. It was hot. It's probably 100 degrees. And I went up to Brian and I'm like, "You set me up to fail. I know you did." And Brian's looking at me like, what is going on? But we had some monumental failures, you know, in getting to this point. People just think it's just, man, that doesn't tell the whole story. It was difficult and tough. And then when we started trying to just mix in the concrete and trying to figure out how to get this quick concrete to not set up too quick. And I mean, it was a chemistry thing. I'm not a chemist, you know, and Brian's dealing with all these chemists and all these. I had no idea where Brian found all the energy or wherewithal to spend all this time on this project.
You know, and really you hit on something that's really important. There's an old saying, I'm not judged by the number of times I fail. I'm judged by the number of times I succeed, but I succeed in a direct proportion to the number of times I fail and keep trying.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. I mean, and I think even kids, when they go to college and they think they want to be this, but they realize that they don't want to do it, they think that's failure, but it's not. You're actually getting close to what you really want to do. So it is success, but you just don't know it at the time. It's a weird deal, but talk about, you know, failure real quick, because I think that's one of the biggest lessons. So how did you feel personally when everybody's boots got stuck in the cement as soon as they poured the deal? What were you thinking and feeling that day?
That was rough, Jose. That was, I remember we had a couple of those instances, but specifically one where we were, you know, the city inspector was there. We were doing this trial, and you know, the trusses, I mean, everything failed. It was just monumental. And I was just thinking, this isn't going to work. We, you know, and how frustrating it was, because we spent all this time away from our families and away from our businesses to do this. It was such a sacrifice. It really was. I would say, especially for Brian, but for Brad and I too. And I think that the frustration was just there. The failure was on the wall. And Brian was trying to pull everybody through it, but it was dark. I mean, as I remember it, it was not a, you know, I grabbed, I remember there was a couple of guys, you know, Shane and Ryan Hall. These two guys were very instrumental as well. And I remember we were just all off on the side venting and just going like, this sucks. Like, this is done. Like, you know, like, where's Brian? Let's go get Brian. It was to that point. So, you know, as I think back about the 2-hour house, I was actually very, very touched when I read the foreword or the acknowledgement from Brian. To be fair, I don't know that I felt in my heart that I did as much as everybody's saying that I did, to be fair. And that's not me just trying to play the humble card. That's just, I'm glad to know that I think more than anything, I was a sounding board for Brian. And I always was honest with Brian because we had that kind of trust and rapport. And so what my actual role was on the whole gig, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. As I look back, you know, there was Brian and Brad and I think we were the kind of the, you know, Brad and Brian were the tent poles, you know, and I just helped keep them up, you know, and they always had my back. And so I don't remember exactly what my role was. Maybe I need to read the book again, but I don't remember. I just remembered, you know, the energy I put in. But I think through that experience and the trust that Brian had in me, and I just to be fair, I had to kind of read the acknowledgement. I had to pull it up and read what Brian wrote. just to remind me of the connectivity, and the synergy that was built. And, Brian said that, I think, not verbatim, but said something along the lines of, Carey was I could always count on him for his honest, outlook on things. And I was probably very negative at the beginning of this whole thing with him. And so I don't know what that did for him. Maybe that helped keep him in some kind of reality, because Brian dreams big, and he dreams in color. And he was fascinating in his ability to get people, as you said, Jose, competitors, to work with each other. I was amazed by what he was doing, and it was a little bit intimidating at the same time. But Brian had this unique ability to bring people in and get the best out of them, and then let them do their job, without micromanaging. And so I appreciated that. And I really am probably still need to sit down and look at all the takeaways from that for myself personally. That I'm probably sitting down and talking about this is giving me a lot to think about, and maybe hopefully there'll be another one or another opportunity to fully unpack that, because I don't think we have the time. I haven't had the time to really think much about it in 20 years, but I'm really appreciate the opportunity to go back down the road again with it.
I guess what I do, and the reason why it's so important to me, is I look at the house metaphor is, what do you want your life to look like? That's your house. Let's work it backwards. You had to deconstruct everything and work it back, and then what do you have to do, a step-by-step strategy to make that happen? Well, in our world, it's tax planning, insurance, investments, retirement, cash flow, budgeting, business planning, estate planning, because you don't want to accumulate and then make your kids all screwed up because you gave them too much money. You know how that goes. And then I look at, what do you want your community to look like? That represents your house. What do you want your house to look like? And then what do you want your business to look like? That's your house. But I look at it as a simple metaphor, because I think you can't do great things by yourself. And what I love about it is that you used your unique ability. You leaned on Brian. You had Brad. You had Eric Dorsey. You had Chris, and you had Brad Hall, and you had Robert Lloyd, and you had all these guys working together with their unique abilities. I mean, to me, it's like a American dream, when you really lean on each other, and competitors working together to do something bigger than themselves. I mean,
fascinating.
That's a special thing. And I guess, my purpose in life is to do this. Well, my dad is symbol. And I think cool. that's the 20-year reunion to bring this up and have everybody see each other. Because the first 5 minutes, I'll take 5 minutes, but I'm going to share with everybody, they don't realize what y'all did. And then to do that, and then how do we get the younger guys in the TABA to engage and come up with something that's special, that unites the community. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
It really is.
It's amazing. And I and then to find you doing coaching, consulting, and, helping people smash through their mindsets. And to say it's okay, because sometimes we expect. Will Rogers Follies has a hell of a quote. I went to a deal that says, if you never want to be disappointed, don't expect too much. I just love that quote, and sometimes our expectations are here, we get disappointed in people, and that sometimes it's our fault.
You said there was a red house and a black house on the practice house day.
As I recall.
Which one were you on, and was yours the one with the failed foundation? And how did you feel at that point?
The practice house day it's a little bit of I think I did a really deep dive with my therapist at some point to eradicate that from my memory, because it was such a shit show. And I, as I recall, the day that we did this, I think the concrete failed. I believe that was on my house. I think the truss failed. I think that was on my house. And I don't know if I was black or red, because I felt black and blue that day. I don't even remember what color I was. But, I felt it was very humbling. Let's put it this way. Like, I remember when Brian put me in charge of one of the houses, and I was just like, you got to be kidding me. And I always felt in the back of my mind, Brian was setting me up to fail. I don't think I really believe that, but I think, that was part of the dynamic that was going on, when you've got, two, maybe possibly three, guys like Brian and Brad and myself that were converging on this project. But the day of that practice, nothing went right. Nothing went right. And it really tested our resolve, and it tested our relationship. It was a stress test for everything that we were doing. But I have to say, we did find out where the pain points were, and we were able to resolve them. So I think maybe that is probably a good way to look at it. Through that failure, we figured out what we needed to fix, and we were able to come together and resolve it. And had we not done that, we would have not been able to do what we did. And so I think, again, I go back to my earlier point of failure is a prerequisite. I think we have to accept it and own it, and in a different way than society looks at it as a whole. And I think that's the way forward. It's underrated. I think by accepting the failure and talking about it more. Sadly, social media today is creating such there's unrealistic goals for us to meet, especially for our kids in that generation. And I hate that. Not all of it, but some of it is we didn't have that back then, really. Back in 2005.
There's 4 things I want to add to that. I don't know why, but one thing triggers another. When you were talking about the pain points were. Mm-hmm. So think about this. People say communication, they think it's what we say or hear, but it's not. You had the flags. That was a form of communication because of concrete trucks, right? Yeah. You had the colors of the teams. That it was total chaos, and then you grouped all those colors. Robert Lloyd brought that up, and you did the colors of who was supposed to be in, who was supposed to. That's another form of communication. Yeah. So it's not just what we say. Do you know what I mean? It's we could teach that to others that, even sign language, you could talk underwater. That's communication, you know what I mean? So, but my point is that learning just for the ideas of that, I think is important, that I believe comes out of that story.
I probably don't appreciate that enough. And certainly you have, the insight of what you shared about your mom and dad, and having that nonverbal communication is so important, and how you say things and those other things. Again, this whole walk down memory lane is reminds me of a lot of things that we relied on and that were successful. And I hope everybody gets an opportunity to tie into how it, into their life today and for their kids too.
Yep.
I got 2 more, if it's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So let's flip the last question I gave you. So now you're on the actual day.
Yep.
2 hours, 52 minutes and change, and it's done.
Yeah.
What were you feeling in contrast at that moment?
The day of was since we had the practice day, and I think we all felt a little. The weather was perfect, as I recall. It was a crisp morning, but kind of a regular warm, beginning of fall day. I think we had all spent the night there. In trailers and whatnot, and we were ready. We were just right. We woke up ready. Coffee. Everybody was fired up. Brian's walking around. Horse whipping everybody, and I remember now the day. I think when we got to the point, I lost all track of time. Incidentally, during this, I knew what we were supposed to do and what gaps we needed to fill and what my job specifically was. And I think everybody, part of the success is everybody believed in what they were supposed to do. They invested in it. And again, I keep giving credit to Brian. Brian just orchestrated this whole thing. I can't tell you exactly what I did after one of Ryan Hall and I went somewhere, and I think Brian and Brad, all them too. We went to a bar somewhere. I don't even remember where it was. I don't think it was Julian's, but we went somewhere. And anyway, I can't get into all what happened there. It's not for a family show, but absolute elation. I probably one of the pinnacles. If I go back and grab that feeling, I don't think I've ever felt like that before.
I think a simple house metaphor is. People can relate to that. So when you say teamwork,
Yeah.
efficiency, cooperation, organization, inspiration, motivation. You go, it's all integrated in there because you have to have that. But you know, one thing I realized after all that, you got to have communication, and communication is the key because you couldn't do any of those things.
You know, you're the best one to facilitate all of this, you know, because I think you get it. You get it in a different way, you know, and I appreciate that.
But the thing is, you know, people need to have different perspectives, and people are going to, we're like chapters of a Bible. People are going to relate to your story, whatever comes up, and they resonate with you. They'll hear from me. They'll hear from Robert Lloyd. Everybody's different and different perspectives, but I think it's so important to communicate that. I think the end result, if I were to say begin with the end in mind, just like a house, is to grow TABA. Number two, this community is really united. I think it's the best community in the world, personally. And then number three, to inspire and motivate people to be proactive and live life on purpose, which is important to me because we got the go-go years, we got the slow-go years, and we got the no-go years. And there's nothing more exciting to me when we map things out. Go live life on purpose and, prepare for tomorrow, but also enjoy today.
I like that.
Which is a big deal. And sometimes we block ourselves and we don't realize we're doing it. It's just the way it is.
Well, hey, I need to hear that. You know, I constantly, you know, need to hear that, and that's just honest, and you bring a lot of perspective to that. It seemed like a lifetime ago, but man, those people are just, what a fantastic time.
Talk about Gloria the way you see it, a good 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I can't say enough about Gloria. Gloria just treated me so well, and the way that she handled not only the business, but all of the personalities and all of the egos. There was nobody during that time that could have done that. And she was just a blessing to be around and a fantastic problem solver, and people trusted her. And I probably don't give her enough credit. I learned a lot from her and just the way that she handled herself. I can't say enough about her.
That's beautiful. That's where we're going to end right there because I love Gloria. I mean, she was something.
I literally cried when she left. I mean, literally. Believe it. I just haven't, and this is all bringing a bunch of stuff back, guys, that I haven't really emotionally dipped into in years. You know, I saw Brad probably a couple years ago. I haven't seen Brian probably since probably the end, I don't know, maybe 2008 or 9. Those years in the early 2000s, with Brian and Brad and I spent a lot of time together, and you know, I would not give those, you know, those moments up. We did. We just really shared a lot. I think I grew professionally a lot during that time span, and I probably don't appreciate enough those years. I probably don't appreciate enough of of the people there that you know, believed in what we were doing and supported us, and it was, without being embellishing at all, it was a family. It was really a family environment there, and I just don't think that would have happened without the mothering, you know, that took place there, and the corralling and all of the, you know, the moments that of growth that we have. You know, if you think about it, the TABA grew. I remember these membership drives we used to have. Oh my gosh, and we grew and grew and grew, and it got to a point of being such a large, you know, community with so many new faces. But I think that I'm very lucky to, you know, had those years with those guys.